Hello fellow travelers, my name's SG and welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to go over the new Batman animated series, the Caped Crusader, and just wanted to give it a quick review, but more importantly than anything, I want to talk about the missed opportunity with the villains. Because I can say that the animation's good, the story is okay, but most of all, which is the most important thing of all, is that the villains are very forgettable. The ones that seem like they should be important seem like they just missed the point all in all. So I thought it'd be interesting to see what could have been the villains or how they can improve the villains later on. Well, for what they got now. Anyway, let's continue on and let's get started, shall we? But before we start, I would say please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, now we get started, shall we? First off, the story is that this is Bruce Wayne's year 2. I believe the creators confirmed. So this is just him pretty much getting the bearings of being Batman, dealing with a corrupt police force, at the same time finding his people in a way that they can help him in this situation. It's a very episodic series, so that's pretty much the story so far. We do meet a variety of different villains, but they all kind of have the similar vibe to them. Harvey Dent being one of the main recurring characters, Barbara Gordon being a lawyer in this universe, which was always kind of hinted in the main comic continuity. And that's pretty much the majority of the story, dealing with Bullock and Flask. Flask being from Batman Year 1 and previous installments such as the Batman briefly mentioned. So that's pretty much where we are in the story. And that's not the full extent of the story, but that's pretty much what I can cover. I do suggest watching it yourself. It is worth a watch overall. It's fun and it's interesting. You can see it on Amazon Prime if you need to. The animation, which I think many people have already praised at this point, is the shining point to it all. You get this vibe that it is like the Batman the Animated Series, but you can tell that there's like a darker undertone to it, that there is this grittiness to it. And that is probably one of the biggest highlights of the series, the animation in itself. Despite maybe some of the characters having a sillier attitude or tone, I do think that maybe that's what we're seeing with this series. The sound effects are fine, the music's fine. It's definitely inspired by Batman the Animated Series, but that's because Brucetimm is definitely one of the creators of this series, because he was one of the creators of that series. So it does mimic it and does capture it and can remind you of the animated series quite a bit. It does have its own tone. Like I said, it tries to go deeper, darker than the other one, trying to give it its own unique flair to it. But at the end of the day, it really just feels like the animated series. Now that we've gotten the quick review out of the way, let's talk about the villains, shall we? I'm going to go through each one by one, because I feel like each one deserves to be in its own thing. Now there will be some I won't talk about. Some that I think are very fine the way they are, that I feel like they're pretty good. Such as Gentleman Ghost. I can't really see adjusting him in any way, and I do like that this is the introduction to kind of the supernatural world to Batman. So Gentleman Ghost I'm not going to mess with. Also Nocturne, I don't see her. I like that episode, the one with the circus. I wouldn't touch that. That's a good one. It was fun, interesting, and gave a new identity to the character, which I think Brucetimm even said that this was a pre-written for the animated series, and they were just never able to get it off the ground because they said it was too dark. So I'm leaving that one be. I do think that those are fine villains, and for what their era and storyline they're trying to go with, it fits. But for now, we're going to be talking about Penguin, Two-Face, all the ones that seem to either be forgotten or were pretty much brushed under the rug, just given the basics of it all. Alright, first on this list, we're going to go through episode list kind of situation. So the first one is obviously the Penguin. Now, many people have their debates about the Penguin, mainly because this is a different version, a gender-bent version of the Penguin, but that's not my issue with it. My issue with it is that you made her so uninteresting. You made her so the opposite of the Penguin that you don't remember it. Now, I remember the animated series managing to make the Penguin interesting and make him relevant into the mainstream, because that's even what inspired the future Batman Returns. So, to make this Penguin interesting, you have to dive into the psychology of the original Penguin, and that is, he is trying hard to fit into this natural society. It's the high society. He is wearing suits. He is being tough. He's acting like he's the biggest man in the world. That is because he knows he's not. So, if you want to do a penguin like this, you have to really dive into the psychology of the penguin. And with that, that means that you have to make her try to be glitzy, glamorous, not dressed like the penguin we know, but trying to be over the top, wearing big clothes, fancy hair, jewelry all over the place. Like, she is not high society, obviously, but you can see that she's trying to a larger extent, hence why she owns the Iceberg Lounge, period. And if you wanted to bring her sons in, you have to make them based on the penguins we know. That would make them more interesting too. In fact, if you wanted to have two sons, have one be like the original Penguin series, like have him be short, stout, but he's strong, but yet very docile when it comes to his mom. And then have the other one be kind of skinny, meek, timid, like we see in the original Gotham series. Have it be that dynamic. That way you have two different versions of the Penguin existing in this world, and they always have a chance to rise and surpass their mother themselves. Really go into the psychology of these characters and makes it more interesting and fun, and can add a new flair to the story and understand the characters more. Clayface was a fine character, I think. I like this version of the story, very reminiscent of the original storyline, and I do think that the whole concept of Detective Montoya being more of a in this one rather than anything else was very good. I do like that they changed it a little bit, and the only thing I could say is that maybe in the future, if they do more Clayface, show that the chemical they use to make it so his face can morph and shift is actually deteriorating the rest of his bones and body, saying that it's making him into living clay at this point. Nothing really else much to say about that. I think they could have done more of a classic villain with Clayface, because they try to make him look almost like the Grey Ghost. But then again, if you want to go with the psychology of it, just say that he's dressing like the hero of the movies. Kind of this idea that he's trying to be the hero still, despite that he's accepted this role as the villain. Or you could even say that he's still trying to be the hero in his own mind, that now it's just completely twisted. Catwoman is definitely one of those characters that was the easiest to forget, and that's mainly because they didn't really do anything interesting with her, other than make her a rich heiress that's trying to get her fortune back, or is just doing this for thrills, period. And to be fair, they've done pretty much all of what Catwoman's about so far. But if they want to make it more interesting, I say go more with what they did with the movie and The Long Halloween. Say that there's recent robberies in certain mob bosses' businesses, and that they're blaming the Bat for it, but it's Catwoman. And saying that she is actually looking for information about not Rupert Thorne, but say much more of Falcone. Saying that she is looking for evidence to support that she is the illegitimate daughter of Falcone. And that way you bring in that kind of mob family, but don't really talk about it. And bring in the Catwoman. That way you can really have more fun with it. That she is trying to do more and extra with it. Say there's more backstory to her character in this one than there has been in the past. Because I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to stick with the animated series version, where you didn't really need to know her background. You just know what she's doing, and she's probably up to no good. But that's not really working in this scenario. You need to add more story, more beef to her character. It's because otherwise it's not working, and it's just being forgettable. Try to go more into her storyline is what I'm saying. Night of the Hunters, the one with Firebug, and yes, Firebug is his own character. There is a separate character for Firebug. I do like it. It was fine. I do feel that this should have been more of a scene for scene from Batman Year One, where he's being chased by the cops, and he is basically knocking them all out, because that's basically what this scene's about, and pretty much what it's inspired by. I do like this idea that Bullock and Flask are actually the main villains of this episode. I wish they would have shown more of them actually being monsters in this one. Because Firebug, I think they made him look too much like Firefly, because that's going to confuse any viewer. It confused me at the very beginning, because I thought this was just going to do Firefly. So maybe just make him look like a pyromaniac. Make him look like he's just deranged and that he is not fully there, ready to go off at any minute. So they should have just gone in on the firebug idea rather than trying to make him look like Firefly. And at the same time, have Bullock be the main character of this episode. Show this twist of his moral conscience. Say that ever since the Bat came out, and say that ever since Gordon took over, he started seeing things in their light, started seeing things as being a good cop, wanting to do it right. And you see it off and on, but overall his bad tendencies win, which we did see in Gotham and in the original Batman the Animated Series, but he's always gone back to being a good cop. So I think this should have been a fight between Flask and Bullock, with Bullock being more of the moral conscience, that it's growing on him now, that he's seeing the effects of what he's doing. In fact, I think it would have been much more interesting that when Firebug set fire to this building, Bullock goes in trying to stop him, trying to find the Bat, but then sees family stuff being ruined, sees these children trapped under basically planks of fire, and he's finally realizing this isn't cool, this isn't right, we shouldn't be doing this. And there, then and there, he realized what Flask is, what they've been doing, and that he needs to change himself. That way, we have this character arc not only for Batman or Gordon, but for Bullock himself. Now, the second most controversial story is Harley Quinn. 1. Not a bad design. It was fine. I think it did good. I think what they need to do to make her more of a character, though, is to focus on her motivation. Why is she doing this? And it's just not because, rich men are a bad situation. I think that there's a real psychological issue that they could have pointed out, that she should have blurted out. Because I do like the idea that she is using her psychology degree to mentally torture these men, and I don't think it should just be rich men. I think it should be people who are abusing their power, period. Whether it be a boss that just demolishes employees, a rich guy that just takes advantage of everyone around him, or maybe an abusive figure in the family. Something like that should be noted. That it's not just rich people, that it is a series of people that she deems as being mentally challenged or needing to be fixed. And this all goes down to maybe figure out her backstory too. If anything, we should have gotten a couple episodes with her to understand her mentality in this universe, because there is no Joker. So what is Harley Quinn's main issue, or the Jester in this universe? Well, from what we can gather, we can guess that she has issues with authority figure, and kind of feeling like she's being used in a certain way. So we can pretty much sum up that her story is pretty much the same, but much more maybe with her family, relationships, people that she's known and dealt with in her past, and has just finally broke her at one point. So much so that they were probably her first victims in this scenario. So there could be more done, and I do like the idea that they're just dressing it up like a 66 thing with the Pharaoh. I wish they would have done a couple more things, like a quick nod at the 66 with that, because that's just a fun little nod. But overall, Harley Quinn, a fine character, needs work to make it memorable, and we do need to know her story. Now, my biggest gripe with the series as a villain is Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a newer age Batman villain, inspired by Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith, when he did his run for Batman, he created Onomatopoeia as a sound villain, and even noted that he wanted to make a villain that would be impossible to do in film and animation, mainly due to the fact that he relies on sound effects to attack. Here, they just have him as leader of an assassin group that uses, sound effects to illustrate his point. Doesn't make sense and just makes him quirky, and I get why people would like that. But when you get the idea that we could have had a much more interesting villain overall, like if they went with the more canon storyline, just make him an assassin looking for the bigger fish to hunt, I think that would be interesting. Like, we do get this idea that, like, in the original, he uses sound effects. So if we can get somebody that can actually recreate sound effects in a certain way, kind of like in the Police Academy movies, we do have that guy who can do sound effects very well and can sound like certain things. If we went in with that idea, and like if we really went noir with it, like you would have like him like calling somebody on the phone, maybe his target. The target answers, says hello. All of a sudden you just hear onomatopoeia say bang, sound like a real gunshot, but then have the target all of a sudden fall to the ground as if he had been shot. Now that is interesting. That would have led to something different and unique. And then also you would have had Batman having to rely on not just his physical strength to fight this villain, but having to do a mental trick around him. Just because he's not able to get his hands fully on him without him doing a whoosh or a sound effect that lets him get out quick. Just a punch to the throat would have stopped that too, which we do see in the animated series. So my main point for that is introduce the metas into this world using onomatopoeia. Would have been an interesting idea and would have grown in the future for next seasons. Now, Harvey Dent, I do think that most people did not take in this series because they depict him as being already not a great guy, being a difficult person, and the fact that he's dealing with the mob and turns into Two-Face feels like it's coming. And that shouldn't be it. The fact is, Harvey Dent needs to be a nice guy, needs to be looking out for people, needs to be looking out for Gotham, period. We do get that he's trying a little bit in that sense, but not enough to actually where we care about him. He's just seeming like a jerk in this one that is unlikable, and that we don't really feel the loss when he dies at the end. So the main thing about that is to show him from the beginning being a nice guy, being friends with Bruce Wayne, showing that he is beloved by the people, showing that he is really trying to help people, that he does have the sense. But just like because they trying to compare him to Batman in this one, you do that, go full on in, saying that the version he's showing people, the version that goes out during the day, this friendly little version of him, is the mask that he's wearing. When really he wants to be violent, he wants to be tough, he wants to go out there and fight for what he believes. But he knows he can't do that. He knows he has to be good. And when the Two-Face incident happens, that just shatters his personality. That want to be good is mixing with that want for violence. You have to show that there is this ideology that he's trying to follow, but at the same time he wants to be stronger, tougher, and that it's meshing not well ever since the Two-Face incident happened. You have to make it this great tragedy that this happened to Harvey Dent. Because you know he's a good guy at heart, and you want to root for him, but you know he's just been given a bad situation. So that is the idea behind Harvey Dent, and that really goes back to episode 1 all the way to the last 2 episodes. You have to make him a likable, fun character that you feel bad that this is happening to, not the jerk character that you see it happening to. And how it should have ended with the way it did makes sense. It makes sense that they would be trying to do their last stand, the corrupt cops versus the Gordon and his people, Montoya, Barbara, and Batman. And that makes sense. But there should have been a bigger subplot to it. With Bullock. Bullock should have been the one to turn around and say that we're not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. There should have been this idea, because we kept hearing this ideology that people can change, people can be better. And at first we're meant to think that maybe they meant it was going to be Harvey Dent, but it feels like it was supposed to mean Bullock. That Bullock understands that what he's done is wrong. He's known from the beginning. He knows he's just the muscle of the whole situation. And that should have been the main arc, the surprise arc, if you will. That Bullock sees it, understands what he's doing is wrong, and finally at the last minute fights Flask when he corners Batman into protecting Harvey or Barbara from being killed. So that should have been the main thing, that it wasn't supposed to be a fight between Batman and Flask. It would have been a fight between Bullock and Flask, and Batman watching, seeing this cop that he knows was corrupt and dirty, suddenly fighting for them, suddenly being this hero, if you will, and shocking everyone there, and even being shot by Flask. Maybe he was get knocked down and shot, but ended up surviving at the end, earning the respect of Gordon, Montoya, and Barbara, shocking them, and even giving Barbara some sort of confirmation that yes, people can change in this world, because Bullock is, and he's going to work his way back to the graces of the people. because now he feels he's looking like a hero due to what happened with Firebug. So that would have been probably the better arc, and it would have shown Batman that people do change, that there is a way for people to change, and that you do need other people to help you change sometimes. And that would have been probably a better ending for that whole situation. For the whole season, I think would have been interesting. All in all, Batman Cape Crusader is not a bad series. It's good. I just feel that it's basic. I feel that it is trying hard on the animation and sound, and it's good. It works. It's definitely pleasant. But sometimes they go too silly on it. Like, there are certain things I think that they just try too hard. Like the Penguin thing. She just wants to blow up Gotham City Police Department. Like, why? What is that? Who is that going to work for? Come on now. That's just too silly. And that there are things that I feel that they didn't really do very well, which the original animated series did, and that is make the characters memorable, make them beloved, make them interesting. The original series only needed one episode each to get to know them, to understand them, and to like them. So that's where they're missing the main point of it all. That's what they're not understanding in this, is that you don't need to focus on Batman as the main one. Yeah, he's the one that's going to fight and stop them. But he also needs to be the one to understand them. And we need to be the one to understand them and like them and want them to come back. Because right now, no one cares if Penguin comes back. No one cares if Catwoman comes back. No one cares if any of these characters actually come back. I mean, I'm sure there's some that want to see how their story continues. But it's not a big loss if they don't. And that's sad, because I do like some of these characters. I do think that there is much you can do with them. So, all in all, I'd rate this series 7 out of 10, because, like I said, animation's good, voice acting's okay. I do think Batman needs to press a little bit more on it, but the characters are fine, and there does need to be a lot of work done into the main story and to building upon these characters themselves. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know and what you think. Leave a comment down below if you have a different opinion on my end. I'm much more than willing to hear what everybody has to say about it. And yeah, please leave a like, comment, subscribe down below, and I'll see you next time, and have a great day.